Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michal Wachstock, and I'm Director of Marketing here at Sisense, and I'm thrilled to have you at this webinar. I would like to introduce you also to Rahul, who is a Senior Analyst from Frost & Sullivan, and Hall, who is from Sisense, who are going to present some key elements on how to choose a BI vendor. For those of you who don't know Frost & Sullivan yet, they're a consulting firm who provide market research and analysis across multiple industries, including business intelligence and analytics. Frost & Sullivan conduct best practice research, and their 360-degree research reports are known as an industry standard. Today's webinar will be in three parts. First, Rahul from Frost & Sullivan will introduce the research on how to choose a BI vendor and how Sisense plays a leadership role in this market. Then I'll present a short case study that highlights some of the key conclusions from this report. And then Hall will show you how the magic is actually done and give a short demo on Sisense itself. A few housekeeping notes. The webinar will be recorded and sent to you after the session is over. And second, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the session, so you can feel free to ask questions in the question box, and I'll pass those over to Rahul and Hall as the session is over. And with that, I'd like to invite Rahul to start us off.
Thanks, Michal. A very good afternoon to everyone joining this webinar today. As Michal mentioned, my name is Rahul Vijayaraghavan, and I work as a Senior Research Analyst at Frost & Sullivan. Over the past year, our business unit, the Industrial Automation and Process Control Practice, has been actively involved in unearthing and identifying key opportunities with respect to the Internet of Things. Stemming from a series of end-user focus groups that were conducted across the United States and Europe, some of the broad topics discussed included the convergence of IT and OT, the future of data management owing to the influx of connected devices, the evolution of services, companies moving from a product-based approach to a solution-based approach, the realization of cybersecurity as a key business imperative, and so on. In today's briefing, we will look at one of the key aspects, that is big data and analytics. In particular, we will look at the market from a best practices standpoint and analyze how Sisense is uniquely positioned to meet diverse customer needs. To give you an overview of what will be covered today, first we will look to define the four main constituents of a big data solution. That is your data storage, your data integration, data analytics, and data representation. Next, we will look at some of the key challenges, implications, and opportunities owing to the increase in data from multiple sources across the enterprise. In this section, we will also look at some of the key areas where customers look to derive value from the critical data. Following which, we will look at some of the key end-user requirements in the current setup. Questions such as how do customers collate their data onto a single unified platform? Why are they looking for a holistic BI solution? And what are some of the minimum requirements they expect from a solution offering in the market? And finally, we will look at a concise profiling of Sisense. What are some of the unique selling points of its offering? How it compares with other market participants? And what are some of the benefits of adoption, particularly from a speed, spend, and support standpoint? In this slide, we have classified a big data and analytics solution into number one, data storage. That includes servers, databases, data warehouses that are used to store and manage large volumes of data. Now, this data could be from a combination of both traditional business systems as well as new sources of data, which we will cover in the subsequent slides. Number two, we have data integration. That includes connectors, your ETL and processing tools to aggregate and prepare multiple data types in a format that is sort of fit for analysis. Number three, we have data analytics, where post-data capturing and sorting, end users are looking to gain actionable insights and validate their core metrics. Interestingly, this segment is witness to a number of emerging upstarts, where companies are coming out with niche platforms to provide some sort of diagnostic and predictive analytics. And finally, we have data visualization or representation. The representation of data in a tailor-made fashion for specific personnel across the enterprise. For example, a C-level executive may want the critical data depicted in the form of a graph or a chart, while a field operator may require just a simple maintenance report to improve operational productivity. Now that we've defined each of the segments for a big data and analytics offering, it is imperative to understand some of the key challenges associated with big data and why end users are looking at this market as a goldmine of opportunities. So here we look at some of the underlying factors that have led to the creation of the big data concept. To begin with, while the adoption of wireless technologies and intelligent devices has transformed a number of vertical markets into a state of hyper-connectivity, it is also attributed to a proportional increase in the inflow of data. To put that into context, I recently came across an article from a key automation vendor that stated in 2020 the amount of data is expected to reach 40 zettabytes, which is equivalent to over 50 times of all the grains of sand on all the beaches in the world. Quite a staggering fact. And in addition to this connectivity, there is also the BYOD, bring your own device phenomenon that further contributes to this data deluge. From a sheer volume standpoint, Frost and Sullivan has identified banking and financial services, government communication and services, and manufacturing sectors are the key sectors to witness the highest data growth, which in turn has resulted in storage requirements increasing by approximately 25 to 30% year on year. Next is the challenge associated with data variety. In today's setup, the key to successful data-driven decision making is the organization's ability to extract intelligence from the information collected from all possible sources of data. Data sources could include application data, such as customer data stored in the CRM platform, transactional data, that is information exchange within the enterprise and across multiple systems, network data that is obtained from communication service providers and mobile network operators, machine data that can be procured from intelligent sensors on the equipment itself, and more recently we have web and social media data. And finally, with respect to data velocity, the speed of data input owing to these new connected devices requires a platform that can process the data in an efficient fashion. In addition to data management, Frost & Sullivan has also identified 4 broad categories wherein customers can derive value from the data. They include process improvements, where data can be used in applications such as equipment monitoring, machine learning, supply chain network optimization, product quality, and performance management. Second, we have resource optimization, where the data can be used for applications such as inventory management, proactive maintenance, workforce availability and allocation, and so on. The third, we have customer and consumer behavior, where data can be used for service improvements, optimizing product pricing, key purchasing characteristics, and market-related activities. And finally, we have risk and security portfolio management, where data can be used for product safety, fraud detection, protection of IP, and so on. Now as touched upon earlier, the exponential data growth fueled by connected devices and multiple endpoints has resulted in key business objectives revolving around information management and providing intelligent real-time decisions to the end user. But here, we're trying to understand what are some of the key pain points that solution providers look at before adopting a BI solution for the big data market. First is the ability to collate and prepare multiple data types quicker than other solutions without really compromising the data granularity and accuracy. This could include integrating structured data, such as your transactional data, as well as unstructured data, such as social media, in a fashion that is ready for analysis. The second is what we like to call little data analytics, or the capability to provide first level of support. Take, for example, if there is a problem on a production line, the manager has to be alerted immediately to prevent operational downtime, right? So as a number of niche market entrants, focus on prescriptive analytics and proactive approaches to failure, this first level of support is often sidelined. Finally, end users are on the lookout for a solution provider that can provide them with all the tools of a complete big data solution, a truly one-stop shop offering, one that works with any off-the-shelf hardware. Now, Sisense not only ticks all these boxes, but goes a step further in improving the overall customer ownership experience. The following slides will look at some of the unique attributes of the solution, as well as its value-added benefits. So this is Sisense's unique value proposition. To start with, in contrast to a number of vendors that continue to rely on in-memory technology, where data is processed in the RAM, its unique in-chip technology facilitates quicker access and processing time by allowing users to perform the BI aggregation on the chipset itself. In line with some of the data velocity challenges that we talked about earlier, a number of customers have witnessed a staggering 1,000% increase in the processing time. Moving to another aspect, its one-stop shop offering. Sisense provides customers a single stack BI solution. That is, its platform encompasses tools that cater to each layer. That's your ETL, your database, your analytics, and representation. And in addition to this diverse tool set, customers also benefit significantly from the platform's capability to be seamlessly used with existing hardware. The next unique attribute of its solution is its crowd speed feature that allows customers to access and query large and scattered data in real time. While traditional BI solutions often have operation limitations and become slow when there are a large number of concurrent queries, Sisense scalable solution enforces faster and quicker performance, even with an increase in data volume. Finally, from a data representation standpoint, users can use widgets to customize and build intuitive dashboards based on their requirements. They can visualize the data in a number of forms, be it charts, maps, graphs, and plots. They can merge a number of views to gain a broader perspective and interact with dashboards using their handheld, mobile, or desktop devices. This is a prime example of Sisense providing customers with an intuitive role-based dashboard to monitor their KPIs. While we've looked at some of the attributes of the solution offering from a customer perspective, it is imperative to identify some of the tangible benefits, which will be depicted in the next slide. So some of the key benefits of adoption include the reduction in the total cost of ownership owing to its end-to-end single-stack BI solution, the reduction in technology licensing costs as its platform can work with any off-the-shelf hardware, quicker access and increase in processing time owing to its state-of-the-art in-chip technology, concurrent querying, as we talked about, as a result of its crowd speed feature. From a support standpoint, limited assistance from in-house IT department. That is, by just clicking of a button on the screen, the query or the answer to a business question is obtained on the spot without creating any new views, without any coding, or without any series of iterations with IT. And finally, the ability to take in high volume, multiple type data without compromising on data accuracy and granularity. So to conclude my presentation today, what we've seen is that while the market is witnessing an increase in data volume, velocity, and variety, there is a strong customer push towards a BI solution that can aggregate, process, and query data faster, and that encompasses a wide array of tools to reduce the total cost of ownership and justify the ROI. For the aforementioned reasons, Frost & Sullivan has identified Sisense as a company that has set the bar for BI solutions and has become a preferred vendor of choice in the lucrative big data and analytics market. Thank you. I'll just hand it back to Michal.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation. And let me just switch over to share my screen. There we go. So I'm going to just take a few minutes and go over one of our customers that I thought hit many of these points quite accurately. The company is Fiverr. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. It's a great technology and a great site. They offer services for $5 or more. You can go there and hire someone to do a service for you. And it's a site that has really been taking off at an astonishing rate. They do 4 million services worldwide, and they've grown 600% since 2011. So what does that mean for their data? That means that their data is growing and growing quickly. They have many different types of data, as we call it complex data from many different sources, and it's getting larger and larger every single day. They have data coming from behavioral data, transactional data, website data, and external types of data like holidays, trends, and more. And the data is actually the definition of complex, being both big data and data from multiple sources in multiple formats. and they needed a place to pull all that data in and have a holistic view of their data. They needed a way to connect data from MySQL, from Google Docs, from spreadsheets, other analytic systems in order to better track a single event. They wanted to track what the customers are doing on their site and how to improve the experience on all elements. So they brought in Sisense, and they now use it as their main data hub. They are working off Hadoop, and they are pulling all the data into their Elasticubes. It was getting a bit too complex for their data scientists to do on their own, and so once they brought in Sisense, it became much easier. Another one of their challenges is that they like looking at data in many different ways at many different times. They didn't want to be stuck to a certain data model. They're constantly adding new sources, and they're slicing and dicing their data in a way that made it imperative to access their data and remain in their hands of the business users. That's a key point here, is that it was the business users that are using the data. It's not sitting in a BI or an IT department. They needed to be able to give the data to the marketing department, to the finance department, to all of the different departments that are, basically all of their departments are now using data. And they wanted their business users to be able to create the reports and analyze their data independently. So since they chose Sisense over some competing solutions when they realized they needed the power of the data and the ability to combine those complex data sources and the ease of use that would allow the data to stay close to the business users. Sisense is now Fiverr's main reporting platform, and they have a team of analysts in addition to their business users who are independently building reports and dashboards and deploying it across all departments. The bottom line for Fiverr is that Sisense now allows them a completely agile environment to make quick and smart decisions based on its customer user behavior. So that was just a quick overview. We have the entire case study on our website for the more details. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to Hall to give us a look into the actual product.
Sure, thank you, Michal. Are you going to?
Yeah, sorry, let me take that back. Sorry about that.
Great. Do you just want to pull up the architecture slide?
There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rahul, as well as Michal. I think you both did a really nice job of both defining what we consider big data today, as well as speaking to the current and future market demands of big data solutions. As previously mentioned, when we talk about big data, we really are speaking to three aspects of data that together form this ever popular term, big data. So volume, variety, velocity. What this really means in layman's terms is large data sets coming from multiple disparate data sources that are rapidly changing and need to be presented to business users in near real time in order to make informed decisions. And so Sisense came to market and was engineered specifically to address these challenges. Michal, are you going to show the architecture slide? Hi, Michal. Do you want to show the architecture slide?
I'm sorry, do we have it now?
No, you just have up a blank screen.
Must be frozen then. Hold on. Why don't I give you presenter? I'm going to give you presenter. I'm sorry, I must be frozen.
Sure. Great. So what I was saying is, what you're going to find with Sisense is that while we are engineered with very sophisticated technology, the implementation, development, and usage of Sisense is extremely straightforward. So the slide that I'm on right now presents a high-level overview of the architecture of Sisense, which again, it's very straightforward. There's really two main components to the Sisense solution. The first component is the Elasticube server. This is just a columnar database with a very intuitive user interface. This can all be installed on any type of Windows machine, whether that's on-site or in the cloud. The Elasticube server is where one of your administrative type users is going to very easily be able to come in, point, click, and connect to multiple disparate data sources, whatever they might be. So, for instance, if you wanted to come in, point, click, connect to SQL Server and pull some data you might have coming from SQL Server into the Elasticube, you might also want to then go in and pull data from, say, Excel and Google Analytics, pull that data into Sisense as well. What Sisense allows you to do is very easily join those data sources up off of a common field. And when you hit build, very simply, this is all going to be transformed into one master data source that's been automatically restructured into a columnar data format in order to provide you with optimized analytic performance. The second component of the Sisense solution is the web application. So this is where your users are working in, Google Chrome or Firefox or Internet Explorer, Safari, whatever their browser might be, to build out their dashboards. Now, this is an important point because with Sisense, there's no need for each user to have a dedicated desktop client. You are working in the web to build out these dashboards, which are now going to be HTML5 JavaScript. So they're very extensible, very intuitive to build out, and they render really nicely on any device because they are HTML5. So they have the intelligent resizing. So these are really the two main components of the Sisense solution. What I'm going to do now is take you guys through a short demonstration and show you how this all fits together. So if I open up my ElastiCube Manager now, so again, this is the ElastiCube here. This is the ElastiCube Manager. I'm going to go ahead and open up the ElastiCube Manager. So this is where you're going to be able to come in and very easily start to connect to and combine disparate data sources. I'll just give this a name here. What it's going to ask me to do now is come in and connect to my data. So you'll see here I have access to all these different database servers. Anything you don't see here we generally can connect to with the generic ODBC driver. We can also connect to flat files and web services. And again, anything you don't see here in the web services list, we generally are able to use our API to connect to. So for instance, if I want to come in and say I have data that's coming from my SQL server, I want to be able to connect to SQL. It's just going to ask me to enter my same credentials in as if I was just entering that SQL server. Once I do this, it's going to ask me to choose a database to work with. And now I'm able to come up and sort this by tables. And I could just say, for instance, I want to work with several tables coming out of my SQL server. I can preview that data. And you're going to see here what's really convenient about Sisense is that when you pull data out of, say, like SQL Server or any of your other data sources, we're going to inherently understand the relationship between those tables as you had previously had them defined. So it's going to eliminate a lot of work. So, for instance, and like we talked about earlier, right? So it's really important to be able to combine data from multiple disparate data sources. Not all your data is going to be residing in one place, and your data is going to be changing. It's going to be growing. So, maybe I want to also come in and say, let's connect to some data I have here from Excel. And I have some data in here about my customers in Excel. I'm going to add this data. So now what you're looking at is I have 4 tables coming from SQL of transactional sales data. I have 1 table here coming from Excel, and it's data about my customers. Now, maybe I want to be able to start to drive some insights across my customer base about kind of their buying habits and kind of my sales as an organization. So what I'm going to be able to do here is very easily join my data, 2 different data sources, join them off a common field here. When I come up and hit build, what's going to happen is those 2 data sources are going to be merged into one master data source that's simultaneously and automatically reformatted into a columnar data structure. The columnar data structure and the fact that we're restructuring your data into a columnar format is very important. It's really what allows us to be able to scale into the terabyte range, whereas most relational databases that are just using in-memory processing really typically aren't able to scale past 80 to 100 gigabyte type range. And Rahul did a nice job of speaking to that as well as our in-chip technology earlier on. So once this finishes building, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how you're able to set this up so that it's automatically going to be refreshing. So one of the things we talked about earlier was the velocity aspect. So data is always changing, right? And you want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information in front of your business users. Sisense allows you to do that by saying, okay, well, we now have all the data that we need within Sisense, but now as this data changes in SQL, and maybe as our customer data starts to change, I need that to be reflected in my solution. And I need that to be reflected without having to do any real work. I need it to happen on its own. The way that we address that in Sisense is by go ahead and scheduling the build settings. I can come here and say, for instance, I want this to, update every, maybe every 15 minutes. This needs to go. Do a check against my data sources and say, okay, pull any new data in that's accumulated within those different data sources. That way, this entire ElastiCube is staying up to date, and you're actually working with real-time data. You can also do other nice things within the ElastiCube, and the great part about the ElastiCube really is that it serves as a semantic layer between your production database and your visualization component. What that allows you to do is several things, for instance. So what I can do here in the ElastiCube now is do things like, say, rename fields. So maybe within my production database, this is supplier ID, and maybe within Sisense in my analytic component, I actually want to change the business logic. I want that to be reflected as supplier name. Pretty straightforward. But you also have the ability to do some more complex type of data transformation. For instance, if I wanted to come in here and create a new field, let's call this total. I have the ability now to do some transformation where I can say, okay, I want to take, you can see here all the fields, tables. I might want to take something like quantity, multiply it by, say, unit price, and I can just parse that and save that, and just like that, I've created a whole new field within Sisense that does not exist within my production database. So without having to change that logic, I was able to do that within Sisense. I also have the ability to do things here like create custom tables. This is where you're able to do things like write your own custom SQL, do things like concatenate tables. You have access to all this different logic in math. The reason I'm really showing this right now is to show you that Sisense was built for business users to be able to very quickly get up and running with business intelligence. That being said, we're still a solution that allows for more technical business or technical users to really dig down and do some real deep type data transformations, really write their own SQL if they'd like to do things like that. So this is just the back end. This is the ElastiCube manager of Sisense. Now that I've created this data model, I've pulled in the data I want to work with. I have it scheduled so it's being updated. I've manipulated the data. I'm going to go ahead and transition over into the front end of our solution. So if I come here, you're going to see I basically have a pre-built dashboard that I have. It's just a sales dashboard looking at several different KPIs. What I want to show you is how you're able to go ahead and create your own dashboard and what that process looks like. So it's as simple as kind of coming up into your web browser, clicking on my Sisense tab, taking me to my home page. I can see it welcomes me. It shows me all the dashboards that I've built that have been shared with me. Here I can see I have different folders of dashboards. What I'm going to do now is just kind of come in and say I want to build a new dashboard. It's going to ask me what ElastiCube I want to work off of, and I can have a multitude of ElastiCubes. Because I just went ahead and built my sales ElastiCube, I'm going to go ahead and use that. So here I'm going to go My Sales ElastiCube. I can hit Create. And from here, really, I have a blank slate. And the nice thing about Sisense is that it's very intuitive. So you can see here I just have a list of these different tables and fields the same way I had them right in my ElastiCube. One of the nicest things about Sisense is because we're connecting to and we're pulling in your raw data, there's no pre-aggregation done. There's no predefined drill paths. There's no predefined queries. What this allows you to do is come in and do things like say, okay, I want to look at my order dates, but now I have the option to aggregate this however I might want. I'm complete flexibility here. Maybe I want to look at order date by year. Maybe I also want to come in here and say, let's look at the sum, so the revenue I have. And this is showing you revenue by year. Sisense will automatically suggest ways to visualize data, and you can always change that, obviously. I'm going to keep this in a pivot table format for now. Another nice function about Sisense is that you have these out-of-the-box functions. So I can come over here, and I have access to all this math and logic that's already been done for me. Makes it really easy. So I can come in here and say, for instance, let's look at the growth, and it's going to ask me to define growth of what? Come back to the data browser, growth of amount. So I can star this and call this % growth. I can actually save this formula now, and I can come back and use it if I need to. So now I have a metric looking at years and order date, so revenue by year and % growth. It's very easy for me now to come in here to Advanced and decide how I might want to visualize this data. You have access to all these different visualizations here within Sisense. We call them widgets. The nice thing about Sisense is because it's all JavaScript and you're working in the web, it's really easy to add plugins, like how I have this Google Maps plugin. You can also bring in visualizations from, say, HighCharts or D3, any JavaScript-based widget. I'm going to go ahead and put this into a column chart. You're going to see here the first thing I need to do is just move this onto the right axis. So now I'm looking at total revenue and percent growth year over year. So now I can just kind of customize the look and feel of this, and maybe I want to have, my percent growth as a line. I can change the colors here. You can always enter in your own custom colors, just you have like a hex code. I can also come in here and say, for instance, I want this to be updating on a range. So here I can say, as the amount increases, I want this color to change, and I can come over here as well and throw on the value labels. Very easy to format this. This should be in a dollar, so I can come over here to amount. I can change this into a currency, click OK, give this a name. So now I really just turned around my first visualization here, looking at revenue by year and percent growth. I went ahead and hid these different dashboards over here for the time being. And really, that's kind of the process of building out these visualizations. I'm going to go ahead now and just build a few more of these so I can show you what's really important about Sisense, which is how these all interact together and how you're able to really drill down into the granular levels. So I'm going to come down here and say I want to look at revenue. Maybe I want to see the revenue by region. And again, I can just come here to Advanced Configuration. I can go ahead and decide how I want to visualize this. Just going to put this in a pie chart for now. Again, customize colors. Put a legend on here. So it's really, for a business user to do this, the learning curve is almost non-existent. So other thing is it's all just drag and drop, really easy to format, intelligent resizing because it's HTML5. I'm going to go ahead and now show you kind of what a more traditional. A lot of times you'll have CFOs who like to be able to view their data in a tabular format. It's no problem at all for Sisense. Might want to start to look here on my sales dashboard at salesperson and looking at the revenue they're generating, as well as what their target revenue was. I'm going to go ahead and keep that in that pivot table look for now. Another nice thing about Sisense is that if you don't have a specific formula that you'd like to use here, you can always create your own formula. And sometimes it's just as simple as saying I want to take my revenue, I want to divide that revenue by, say, my target. I can star this, call it. So now I created my own custom formula here. And then lastly, I'm just going to add in, say, city. If I come in again to Advanced Configuration, you're going to see how easy it is to kind of format this. So first things first, I'm going to change this to a %. Click of a button. Maybe I want to actually group these by city so I can see my salespeople by city. And also maybe I want to do something like, say, put on conditional formatting so that anyone who's under $5 million in revenue will show up as red and anyone under will be green. Go ahead and give this a title as well. And now I'm just going to have one final visualization before I kind of show you how this all fits together. So let's maybe do one around geography. So I could just quickly take revenue and say let's break this by state. And I can say, okay, let's put that as an area map. Choose US. Again, you can customize this however you'd like. Stay with the same color theme that we already have. Give it a title. Okay. So now what you're going to see is I basically just quickly created a pretty high-level sales, executive-type dashboard, right? We're looking at revenue by region. We're looking at year-over-year sales and percent growth year-over-year. Looking quickly at all the cities as well as the reps associated with them, what the reps are doing for their sales in terms of their total revenue versus their target and their percentage target. And now is really where I'm going to show you how this all fits together and how you're actually able to do some real data discovery here. So maybe you just want to come in and you're an executive and you want to say, okay, well, I just kind of want to see how my East Coast team is performing. So maybe I want to come in and click on East Coast. It's going to show you now very quickly everything updates for East Coast. I'm looking at just East Coast revenue year over year with percent growth, looking at just the East Coast states, and just the East Coast city and reps. So to drill down into that a little bit more, what's really nice about Sisense is that because there was no pre-aggregation, there's no predefined drill paths, I can literally drill into anything that I would like here. So maybe I want to cut the East Coast by city. And now I'm looking at the East Coast cities. And if I were to click on, say, just Chicago, what you're going to see is that everything updates for Chicago. This is just Chicago revenue and growth year over year. Chicago here, obviously. And then the Chicago reps, who all seem to be doing pretty well. So, looking at this quickly, I can see, okay, well, 2012 seemed to be our best year. Let's maybe look into why that was. If I just highlight this, again, I can drill in anything that I would like. So maybe from here, I want to start to look into the different salespeople in Chicago who are in 2012 selling. And it looks like they're all, fairly even in terms of their performance. Looks like William stood out a little bit. Maybe I want to drill down on William and see what might have caused that. The first thing I want to do here is come in. I can go down to the order date. And I have the ability to re-aggregate this however I like. So maybe I want to look at his order date by quarters. Very strong Q4, and you might start to ask yourself, why was that? Let's see maybe what he was selling. Again, this is all just me kind of trying to tell a story and trying to figure out what's going on within my business. Maybe I want to come in here and look at the product catalog and say what were the products he was selling, right? So I'm looking at different products. I'm able to come into here now and say, okay, I had the best quarter selling sofas. Let's see maybe why that was. I can even come in here and start to drill down and get as granular as looking at the discounts he provided. And this is where you start to drive some insights in terms of, okay, well, surprisingly he had more sales with a 15% discount than he did when he was giving a 20% discount. The point here is that I started with a very high-level dashboard that I built off of two different data sources that I needed to be able to combine. And I was able to actually build this dashboard, review it, and then drill down and get very granular with my data. And it's just as easy now to drill back up. You can see exactly kind of the path I took to get to where I was. At the same time, what you'll notice is on the right-hand side, all these filters were automatically being added without me having to do anything. So intelligently, it saw what I was looking into, created these filters. If I wanted to, I could come over here, and I could add a filter on the fly. So I'm able to come in, if I need to, and say, actually, let's just add a filter for salesperson. This would allow me now to very easily be able to select a single salesperson or any number of them I wanted to and have at a glance say, okay, what's going on with this one individual? Now, they're obviously in California, more specifically San Francisco. They've been selling for 2 years. They're down 15% year two. Well, let's start to look at why that is. And again, go through that whole exercise of kind of doing that data exploration. So what I was hoping to demonstrate here was that with Sisense, you have the ability to very easily come in, combine multiple disparate data sources, make sure that that's staying up to date in terms of velocity, so you have this data being up to date in the hands of the right individuals so that they're able to have dashboards that would allow them to drive business decisions in near real time. So, Michal, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Why don't you just keep it on your screen since I'm not able to present from mine for some reason. That was really great. Okay. Thank you so much. We do have some questions that have come in, so I will read those out for you. Maybe you can answer some of them. The ones that we can't answer, we'll be answering offline after the session is over. So the first question I have here is, can the user define the refresh data update frequency? Example, real time for some data, hourly, daily, monthly for other data.
Sure. Yeah. So exactly. So you are able to define the refresh rate, and it can be different for different data sets that you have. So that's actually a feature that we just implemented in our latest release.
Great. Does Sisense allow you to do dimensional modeling, or is that unnecessary to do dimensional modeling with the ElastiCube?
Yeah, good question, and it's an important point. So you do not need to do any dimensional modeling. That's the whole point of Sisense, is what we want to work with is your granular data. I mean, if you wanted to aggregate your data ahead of time, you could, but it would limit you when you're working in your solution. So our whole mantra, what we're enabling you to do is connect to, pull in raw data, and we're actually able to work with huge amounts of raw data because we're using that columnar data format. So work with your granular data, and that allows you now, when you're in the front end of the solution, creating dashboards, you can now aggregate that data however you'd like. So there's no need for dimensional modeling.
Great. Can you export to Excel or PDF?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can come up here and you can export this whole thing into a PDF if you'd like to. You're also able to come in and do things like, say, I want to download this as a CSV file. So we don't have Excel right now. We have CSV. You can always kind of translate that into Excel.
Can Sisense connect directly to a production database without impacting performance?
Yes, absolutely. So Sisense puts almost a non-existent pressure or non-existent load on a production database. What we're doing is basically periodically, you'd say, so every 15 minutes maybe your refresh rate is. Sisense just basically reaches out and looks to see any new data that's been added to that database and only pulls the cumulative data. So very, very, very little. Nothing like you would have with a solution. Because we have, so if you were going to be running calculations, so if a lot of visualization tools, they're just front-end solutions, just pure visualization tools. When you do something like click on East Coast, that's actually going and hitting against your production database. Sisense, the way we have it engineered specifically, is that you have a semantic layer here. So this is only reaching out and pulling any new data in. When you run a query, we're only querying against Sisense. We're not querying against your production database. It takes a tremendous amount of strain off of your production database.
Great. Here's a question about security setting rules. How granular can you set the security for your data?
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of OEM customers who are obviously embedding Sisense into their applications, and they're making that public, or they're making that available to their customers. So security is of utmost importance. We have some very large, Fortune 100 companies that rely on us to make sure that their security is upheld. Sisense can be, row level. It can be, group level security. Really, a lot of times what we're doing is taking your existing security hierarchy, and we're using an API to bring that into Sisense, so we can pretty much just mimic exactly what your current security settings are. So absolutely, we can be as granular as necessary.
Great. Is there a functional limit to how many data sources Sisense can connect to?
There's no functional limit, no.
Okay. How long does it take from getting up with Sisense till your first dashboard is live?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to ask, but I'll tell you it's a lot faster than any other solution that I've worked with, and I've been in the space for a while. When you sign on with Sisense, a partnership with us, included in that partnership is 10 hours of onboarding, which is basically you having the ability included to work with one of our post-sales engineers. I'd say, you just watch me go through this process. So as soon as you're able to load your data into the Elastic Cube, in terms of building out your first dashboard, it's typically a matter of hours from when you have your data loaded up. So.
And I'd also like to add that we have the free trial on the website that you can try immediately. You can bring in, it's a real free trial, so you can bring in your own data sources and start building your visualizations and see how easy it is for yourself. There are a few pricing questions which we're going to answer offline. Here's another question. Can you have object level security for cubes?
Object level security. I'm actually not positive on that, so we'll have to get back to them.
Okay. And I guess this is a pricing question more general, is it a subscription fee or by user?
Yeah, so so our pricing model is pretty straightforward. It's an annual subscription, and in that subscription, you're included as your software, the onboarding, which is us, spending time to get your solution up and deployed. Also includes support, maintenance, training, and software upgrades. And the solution is priced out by cost of the server as well as named user licenses. So, sorry about that, my screen just changed over. There is one license for the administrator, so whoever's working within the Elastic Cube. There's one license for whoever's building or a dashboard designer, and then there's one license for a consumer. So there's 3 types of named user licenses plus the server.
And if anyone would like pricing information, you can just submit that through your questions box, and I will get that answered immediately. We're going to answer another few questions, and the rest we're going to answer offline. How about, can ElastiCube handle data preparation like union, pivot, unpivot of data without using custom SQL?
It depends on the specific use case, but you can definitely union data without using SQL. Pivot, unpivot, that might take some SQL. It really depends on what we're working with in the data type that we're looking at.
Okay. I think that is going to be it for today. The rest of them seem to be a bit more specific, and we'll get those answered offline. I want to thank Rahul and Hall for joining us for this webinar, and all of you guys for joining us. Really appreciate it. As I said, the webinar will be available recorded, and I'll have that sent out to you, and all the additional questions will be answered as well.